Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas here with you this morning, and we are 2 days away from Christmas. Hope you've got your Christmas shopping done. The lady I know who does the most of anyone that I am aware of would be Gail Weisand. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Susie.
And the reason I say that is because you are the mom of how many?
We have 15 wonderful children.
15, and they have, how many grandchildren have you got?
Well, 10 of our children are married, so we have 10 daughters and sons-in-law, and then there are 15 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren.
And 9 great-grandchildren. And, you know, she looks 30 years old. So
well, thank you.
How do you get ready for Christmas with that brood?
Well, we start early. We start shopping sales and things like that as the year goes on. Some of the things that we're giving for Christmas we've already gotten quite a while ago and are in the attic. But we also talk to the children about what they'd like to have. Some of them want money. As more of the grandchildren are teenagers, that's what they want.
Sure.
And some of them more gift cards. And we try to avoid the kinds of things that get in the way of our interaction with them, like the video games. So several of the grandkids this year are getting police uniforms, or different types of Legos, different interactive games. We really like the things that help the family to be more connected to each other.
Oh, well, you're always thinking ahead and doing it right. Now, the reason that the Weisand family is so large is because you are an adoptive mom. 13 of your children are adopted, and that's why we want to talk with you this morning. A lot of folks think of adoption during maybe November, Adoption Awareness Month, but now we're into December, moving into January, and there are still children who need homes. Isn't that right?
Yes, there are many children waiting for families, many children in foster care.
And you've gone beyond just adopting 13 children to have 15 altogether. You are now doing this professionally. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing, aside from being a very busy mom.
Yes, I'm a counselor at 4Kid Help, which is a Center for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. The psychiatrist, Dr. Lee Reynolds, has founded this practice and has both nurse practitioners and counselors there as well. And I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Akron in the Masters of Social Work program teaching advanced practice, which is basically what I do in my job. So it's really fun to be able to teach it to new students that are going out into the field.
Do you have any at home now, or are you empty nesters?
We don't. It's been several years since we've had anyone living at home.
And what kind of an adjustment was that for you?
We had a huge empty nest problem. We had a big house with 14 bedrooms and ended up having to sell that and build another one that has 3 bedrooms upstairs for guests, and we put our bedroom on the main floor. And that way when the kids come home, there's space for them. But we basically live on the main floor of the house. It's a very funny adjustment to not have a lot of extra space.
Well, I want to think back to when you and your husband first got married. Was this always in the plan? Did you look at each other and say, you know, I want to have 15 children. How many do you want to have? How did that work?
No, we had planned to have 3 or 4 maybe. And we had talked about adopting. So first we had our 2 birth sons, who are both now all grown up. Kip is in the Marine Corps, and Corey is a counselor at Community Services. And once they got to be 2 and 3, we had heard about an agency called Holt International Children's Services, which is in Eugene, Oregon. And we contacted them and adopted Shani from Korea, and she was 4 at that time. So we thought maybe a sister for Shani would be pretty cool. And then we heard about a brother and sister that were waiting for a family, Shantae and Casey. The sister was Shani's age, just about a year older. She was 7 at that time, and her baby brother was 20 months. So they came together as a package deal, and we pretty much thought that we were done. And the problem was that we had just fallen in love with our kids and seen what amazing children they were, what beautiful human beings, and what difficult circumstances they had come from. And it started to bother us that we had so much, and that there were still children in orphanages and in foster care that were waiting. So we decided to just adopt one more time, and that seems to be how we got ourselves into this situation.
Oh, just one more, and then just one more.
But then just one more.
One of the things that you also were navigating was language, because some children would arrive, not just infants ready to learn how to speak, but grown children who were elementary age or older.
Yes.
That did not speak English as a first language. How
Correct.
did you navigate that?
We depended on the Korean community to help us a great deal with that. And there were several families from the Korean Association who not only served as interpreters for us, but taught us a lot about the children's language. And they were people that you could call late at night when a child was having a nightmare and say, he keeps saying this phrase over and over. Can you tell me what it is? And in the one case, our son, Tevi, was waking up believing, as they teach in the Korean culture, that if you sleep on a bed that's up off the floor, then you can get some evil spirits or something like that underneath the bed. And so it was really easy to solve the things that were problems. It's just that we didn't know what they were saying. And fortunately, there were really dedicated families in the Korean Association that were helpful to us. We also enrolled the children in Taekwondo and Korean dancing lessons, and we all went to Korean school, even the children that were not Korean in our family, because it was fun to learn another language.
So everyone in your family is dual language now? They were all able to speak Korean?
I will say that they were exposed and taught a great deal about Korean. Unless it's used all the time, you no longer are fluent in it.
I like what you say about you were able to solve the problem once you realized what that problem was, and that has a lot to do with parenting in general, doesn't it?
It's so true. We don't often know what's going on until we dig into it a little deeper.
And the other thing that I remember you talking about was Airplane Day. You didn't always know exactly when the birthday was, but your family celebrated Airplane Day. Tell me about that.
Yes. For our children that came from overseas, they arrived on an airplane, and when they were very young, that was what they thought of as their arrival day. As we adopted more local children and children from surrounding counties, it became Gotcha Day. But then our birth kids really felt that this wasn't right because their Gotcha Day was the same day as they were born. So they celebrated St. Patrick's Day because they were the only Irish children in the family.
Oh, funny.
We had to have something. We had a lot of cakes at our house.
You had a lot of everything at your house. What all countries are represented in the Wiesen family?
Well, Joey is Mexican. Then we have several local children that were of a variety of nationalities. We have 9 children who were born in Korea, and we adopted them either from Korea or some of them came from various states where their first adoption from Korea hadn't worked out well. So one of the children came from Connecticut, one from Denver, one from Idaho. You
realize how amazing this sounds to most other people. I know you're saying no. but how logistically does a family become organized enough to be able to make this work and blend all of these children from all these different nationalities and states and cultures and so forth under one roof?
It was a continuing work in progress, and most of the time it went really well. If the children live in the same home with you for years, they begin to absorb what the routine is and what's expected. And so the logistics of getting dinner on the table and everyone seated at the table or getting homework done were very easy because everyone knew what was going to happen every day. And there was a lot of very nice peer pressure going on. So if someone decided not to do their chore for the day, then someone else would say, wait a minute, I had to set the table, get up and clear it. And I didn't usually have to say very much. They all knew their rooms had to be thoroughly cleaned on Saturday before they could go anywhere. So it was an understanding, and sometimes they'd even run upstairs on a Friday night because they wanted to go out early on Saturday and get that done.
This had to be something that your 2 born children bought into as well as the family began to grow and grow and grow. Tell me a little bit more about Kip and Corey and how they were part of the team.
They were a really important part of the team. They were the role models for the children who were new until they became the old kids and knew what was expected. They had to be there from the very beginning in agreement with us, to work together with us to do this. because there's no way it would have worked had they been working against us. It was so important for the family to stay together. And there were times we had to have a lot of talks about these things. And there were times that they said to us, Mom and Dad, we've just got enough kids right now. We need to stop. And there were times that we'd wait several years before everything had settled into a different way to add on again. So there was only a very short time that we had all of the children at home at one time.
Yeah, what was that period of time? How many years were there really 15 children all under one roof? Because as some would grow old, obviously, they would move on and go to college and so forth.
It was a little less than a year
Wow.
that we had everyone there at the same time.
But you do gather as a family for reunions.
Yes.
What is that number when you count you, your children, spouses, grandchildren, great-grandchildren? Do you have that number off the top of your head?
74.
Good night. Okay. All
If
right.
I'm counting like grandchildren's boyfriends who are always there and those kind of things,
Sure.
there's usually those special people
Yes.
that become part of it. And some of them are the birth families of some of the kids that we adopted. And they've become part of our extended family.
Wow. Tell me about grocery shopping. How did you do that?
Those kinds of things that seem like it's the hardest part to everyone else because they don't do it were really the easiest things. You had a master list that you worked from. You knew what you had run out of. You bought flour and rice and things like that in 50-pound bags so that you didn't run out of them very often. And they were kept in a type of a trash can that had a tight-fitting lid in our pantry. So many of the things that we had bought were in bulk. We bought bread in bulk, meat in bulk, and those went into our freezer. So that part was not the hard part. It was being aware and attentive to the emotional needs of the children that was the hardest part and where I fell short sometimes.
Well, oh gosh, don't be hard on yourself at all. You didn't fall short. You have done an amazing job. Let me start with this because we've only got a couple minutes here until the break, but I really do want to get into it's difficult when people have a smaller family to get to truly know each child individually. And I'd be so interested in, as a mom to mom, how did you do that? How did you connect with each of those children individually when you've got basically a classroom?
It's true. We used bedtime as our special time with them, and we took them out individually with us on what we called dates. So bedtime, everyone got tucked in, and my husband and I divided up and went into different bedrooms on different nights, kind of split up, and just sat on the bed and asked how the day had gone and what was new and what had happened to them. So if we hadn't been able to connect before, we had some time reserved at the end of the day to make sure that happened. Sometimes we'd sign permission slips and tell knock-knock jokes. It wasn't always this heavy kind of thing. But if someone had had a hard day, we used that time to connect with them and find out what had gone wrong and what we could do to help them. We also arranged for the kids to go on dates alone with us. And we did that either when my husband and I were going out and we had a babysitter, or when I picked them up from school to go out to lunch with me and then brought them back to school. And we made sure that everybody was on the calendar on a regular basis.
So much of what you're saying could be scaled back to a smaller-sized family and just used as great parenting. You also made sure that you and your husband had dates, just the two of you, pretty regularly.
Yes, and there was always one, sometimes 2 days a week when he was off work and I made sure that I was off and we had the whole day alone together.
Amazing. We're talking to Gail Wiesand, and we're trying to round up more people, not necessarily to adopt 13 children to add to your family, but to give a child a home. If God's working on your heart right now, always a need for adoptive families for some wonderful kids. You're listening to Our Community on the Light, 95.9 WNPQ. I'm Susie Thomas.